Thank you so much to Kim Foreman of Houlihan Lawrence for sponsoring this interview with Ryemarkable mom, Catherine Nettleton. Hi guys, I'm Liz Woods and I'm here today with Catherine Nettleton. Catherine is the mom of 3 kids, and I've been following Catherine's story on Instagram lately, specifically about her youngest son, Will, who's a baby born as a preemie, and Catherine is here today to share her story. Thank you so much for being here, Catherine.
Thanks for having me, Liz.
So can you tell us first a little bit about your family?
Sure. So we've lived here in Rye for 6 years. We moved up in the fall of 2014, and a month later, our oldest, Scotty, was born. So he's 6. Mm-hmm. We have a 4.5-year-old daughter, Caroline, and then little baby Will, who just turned 1 in November.
So cute. And I've been covering a lot of stories about babies recently on Facebook and Instagram, and sharing a lot of stories about moms who had babies in 2020. I know Will wasn't born in 2020, but his story is so inspirational. I just wanted to hear about his journey and your family story.
Sure, of course. Well, what's funny is that as I've seen all your videos about the babies of 2020, he was supposed to be a 2020 baby. He was originally due at the end of January of 2020. But he came early. In the summer of 2019, I found out I was expecting, and by Labor Day, coincidentally, at 18 weeks, my water broke. And it's a condition called PPROM that stands for preterm premature rupture of the membranes, which just basically means your water broke early and too early. And the prognosis is grim for pregnancies, especially when it happens that early. You know, it was a really, really stressful time for our family, because we really didn't know how things were going to go, literally day by day. That's how we kind of had to take it. And fortunately, we were paired up with just an incredible doctor at Greenwich Hospital, Diana Adams, who to this day is just one of our angels. And as the pregnancy, against all odds, continued through the fall of 2019, she said to us, well, you've gotten this far, and now it's time to kind of look at how we're going to give this baby the best chance to survive and to thrive. So she connected us with a group at Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital, New York Presbyterian, Columbia in the city. Mm-hmm. And we went in for our first consultation with them in like the September timeframe last fall. And they said, well, we do see patients like you with this condition, and our protocol is to have you come into the hospital and live with us for monitoring from that earliest edge of viability around 23 weeks until whenever the baby is born. And of course, we had no idea when that would be. So that was an interesting pill to swallow, because I was already at home on bed rest, and that obviously for any mother would turn your world upside down.
Absolutely.
We had to hire a nanny. We had to hire a nanny all of a sudden. My mom came up from New Jersey. My mother-in-law flew in from Chicago and came to live with us for months. So it was at the same time this incredible moment of feeling like everybody we knew kind of really gathered around us and helped us in such amazing ways. On the flip side, we were dealing with a very serious medical situation that posed obvious challenges to Will's health, and pretty serious challenges to my health as well. So I went from being on bed rest at home to moving into the hospital for 6. It ended up being 6 weeks, my stay there. And just sort of turned over my life to my husband, my mother-in-law, my mom, our nanny, our friends, our neighbors. And it was hard. It was really hard, but
I'm sure you had many, many ups and downs throughout the weeks that you were in the hospital. When was he ultimately born?
This all started at 18 weeks, and he was born at 28 weeks and 6 days.
Wow. So you were in the hospital for a long time.
So we were in the hospital for a long time. And my condition, one of like the most serious thing that comes from PPROM is the baby's lungs don't have the opportunity to develop as they normally would. And so his respiratory situation when he was born was serious, very serious. He was intubated for several weeks. And that first month when he was in the NICU was really, really difficult. But after that time, he became everybody's favorite little patient. He just kept putting on weight. He kept making progress with his, they would, as the days go by, they kind of backed off more and more and more the respiratory support that he was getting. So his stay there at Columbia was such a incredible experience for us to just see how modern medicine really just gives kids like him a chance. And he did really, really well there.
Right. So once he was born, did he have to stay for a long time, or did you bring him home?
He did. Yeah, he did. So he was there for 91 days. So he was born November 14th of 2019, and he was discharged February 13th of 2020.
Which led
unfortunately,
right to the virus,
he got
right?
very sick. Right. So we got home and we were like,
oh my gosh.
we were still sort of living it wasn't really front and center quite yet in February, but unfortunately 2 weeks after he got home, he got very, very sick again and ended up being back at Maria Ferrari over at Westchester Medical Center for a month. And thank goodness he made it out of that whole experience healthy, and he's been healthy since, the early April timeframe. But that was another big one because we were there with him while he was having a really, really tough time. And all around us in the hospital in this area in Westchester, New York City, COVID was exploding. So it was a really kind of out of body, where am I? What's happening? Stretch of time there in that month of March last year.
I can't even imagine. I have the chills just thinking about it.
It was pretty wild.
Crazy. So I know that had to be so challenging for your family, but I also know that challenging times definitely teach us life lessons. What are some of your takeaways after having been through all that?
Sure. So many, and I'm sure that every person watching this and everybody, in the world over the past year has had such a, transformative sort of experience. A few particular things come to mind. The way that the mom community here in Rye rallied around us was an incredible thing. We had friends, neighbors, parents of my kids, classmates, just people who I really had never even met in person, coming to our aid. And that kind of showed itself in many different ways. There were the pickups and drop-offs that we got help with. There was the babysitting help. There were the meals that were dropped off at our door. But I have to say one of the most helpful things for me was the way that people came to me and shared their stories. And I guess it's just sort of a common thing that when you're going through a tough time, somebody who's been through something similar, there's a connection can sort of form there. And maybe otherwise you wouldn't have known that thing about that person. And one of the first connections I made in this really tough time with Will's pregnancy was with Donna Zion, who I found out was a neighbor of mine. She lives right around the corner. You featured her on Ryemarkable Moms last fall. And I was coming home from a really tough appointment in my pregnancy with Will when things were really complicated. And you had Donna on to talk about her experience with infant loss and with complicated pregnancies, and with her foundation, Haley's Hope, that helps NICU families. And I reached out to you. You connected me with her. And 2 days later, she was sitting in my bedroom when I was on bed rest talking to me about her experience.
So awesome.
It was a couple years ago now, but it was a really meaningful exchange that we had.
I'm so happy
to know that somebody so close by. No, it really was, because I, first of all, had no idea about her story and what she has gone through with her family. And then the way that her family and others that are part of her foundation work to this day to help support families who have babies in the NICU who have, extreme health complications and circumstances.
Right. And her message of hope is so powerful.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yep. Incredible. And her foundation is actually embedded at Columbia. So we were able to continue, we got to know her there as well. And, went beyond Donna too. I have had friends that, again, I just didn't know this piece of their story, and they started to share with me about some of their tougher situations. And so I've just learned that, sometimes it's tough to come out with a thing that's hard, but, it can really help a person who's struggling when you share about your own experience.
Right.
There have been so many other lessons that I've learned. Two more come to mind. Recently I actually listened to a podcast with the writer Elizabeth Gilbert, and she was asked about her experience with grief. She had lost her partner to cancer a couple of years ago now. And she was asked about that experience. And she said, I burned a lot of energy in those early days around this idea of how will I make it on this earth without this person who I lost? How will I do this? How will I continue living my life? And that is that's a very taxing mentality to be in. And I certainly went there when I was on bed rest, because when you're given such a diagnosis and told to go sit in your bed for some unknown period of time, you really have no choice but to sit and to think about, well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? How is this possibly going to work? And where I ultimately landed, with the help of some books and podcasts and friends and all that, is just that you don't have to know the how. You can't know the how, because this is a situation you've never been in before. So there is no roadmap. You don't know how. Right. You can't know how. You just have to trust that you will do it. And the fact is you are doing it, because you're continuing to just sort of live minute by minute. Sometimes minute by minute is all you can do, and that's okay. So the third lesson that I feel like I really learned during this time, and for sure over the past year, is that, another thing that was a big sort of source of stress for me when I was on bed rest and then when Will was in the hospital, was because people were so kind and generous with their meals and their time and their support of our family. I just felt so much pressure to figure out a way to say thank you. And I felt like it needed to be this big grand gesture, and what was that going to be? And I spent a lot of time on that. And so I was talking about this with a friend one day, and she said, Catherine, this is your time to receive. You've been through a lot. People are doing this out of the goodness of their own hearts. And you have to trust that when the time is right, when you have enough time and energy and sort of, just space to say thank you in a meaningful way, you will. And so that was a big one for me, because again, I think as moms, we just want to do the thing, and to be in a space where you're just receiving others' support is
really uncomfortable,
a complicated and tricky thing. Yeah, it's uncomfortable to accept the help as a mom. Yeah. And I kind of had no choice to accept the help, because I was told to be on bed rest and then I was in the hospital. So a lot of this, don't get me wrong, I was kind of forced to go there and to accept that as my reality. But I think it's kind of a lasting lesson, because it's just another whole thing I think we do as moms, that we have to feel like we have to do something. And there are times in life where just getting through the day-to-day is enough, and receiving the support of our family and friends in our community is what we need to be doing.
Yeah. I can't tell you how much I can relate with that. I hate accepting help or asking for help, or it's really, really uncomfortable for me. So that's really nice to hear, to receive. It's just as simple as that. Know that in the future you can pay it forward, but for now, just take the time to receive. Catherine, so what an amazing journey your family has been on. Where are you guys now?
Kind of related to the last point we were discussing about, what is that show of gratitude? A big piece of that for me was also how to stay connected to the hospital where he was, and that community of doctors and nurses and parents who I got to know while he was in the hospital.
And I'm sure you want to say,
and I didn't know. Exactly. I was like, there aren't enough donuts in the world that I could drop off to the nursing unit, and I seriously, how many meals can we send? There aren't enough. And so, I learned after he was discharged from Columbia, I learned of a group that's called the Family Advisory Council, the FAC, which is a group of parents who whose kids range in age, who have all variety of medical difficulties, who have spent time there at Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital. So specifically, we formed a little NICU subcommittee that just focuses on issues that might face babies and families who spend time in the NICU. And right now we're looking at sort of reimagining or reworking the discharge process. Our little tagline that we've come up with among our little mini committee is making it less transactional and more transitional, and trying to understand how families could maybe feel more supported in the days and weeks leading up to discharge. And then once they go home, kind of keeping those lines of communication open between the families and the staff at the hospital who had come to know their child so well. So that's what we're working on. And I've kind of opened it up to my sort of Instagram, like,
following,
my friends who I connect with on Instagram to get, again, sort of going back to that theme we were talking about before with the sharing of stories, because even people outside of Rye and outside of this area, so many people have had tough, pregnancies and NICU experiences. And I really wanted to hear from people wherever they had those experiences, what worked and what didn't with that discharge process. Where are there best practices that we could find anywhere where they might be, and how could we implement them at Columbia? And then maybe, if there's an opportunity to share more broadly, hospital to hospital, of course, that would be fantastic. So
that's amazing.
That's the work we're doing now. And we're hoping that, it can make for meaningful change for some families.
I'm sure it will, because so many families who are going through this don't have a roadmap. You never plan on, a sickness or a preemie or something like that. So I'm sure so many families are going to benefit from this.
Right. That's our hope.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I can't wait to watch Will grow and see him get bigger and bigger on Instagram and in real life too. And thank you for sharing your story.
Me too. He's everywhere now. We just had to baby proof our house because he's now everywhere. So no place is safe. He will.
Oh my God.
He'll find a corner, an outlet, any little thing. He'll find it.
Well, keep posting. He's so cute. I can't wait to see him.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
See you soon. Oh,
this is William. This is Will.
Hi. I feel like I'm meeting
Sally.
Oh.
I know. He's all of a sudden become so active. He's like everywhere.
Oh,
I know.
My gosh. Come on.
Yes,
Hi, Will.
Very here, we'll give you a little something to play with. So here, you want to try this? Okay, ready?
I feel like I should show him.
Okay, you can play with the paper towel. That's fine.
Oh my gosh! Come on. So cute.
Maybe.
Oh.